Okay. So I think we're good. So welcome everyone to the cert-manager bi-weekly meeting. It's Thursday, the 23rd of January, 2025. We have a lot of announcements, or at least a seeming large amount of announcements today, because I have spent what feels like the last 2 weeks doing nothing but releasing open source cert-manager components. Um, I'm not going to list them all. Anyone that is interested in the releases that we've done, it's worth going and looking at the meeting notes for this. The one that I would highlight really would be cert-manager 117, the first alpha version of that. If anyone's able to test it, we'd really appreciate that. There'll be a beta release next week, I would imagine, at this point. So far, there's nothing particularly controversial or spooky that's going into cert-manager 117. It's a fairly normal release. But all the testing is always valuable and it seems smooth so far. Certainly some of the internal testing I've done has been helpful. Something I didn't actually put in the announcement section because I was too busy copying the links for all these releases is that I started playing recently with Let's Encrypt Acme certificate profiles, which lets you, the big ticket for that is that you can soon request like shorter certificates from Let's Encrypt, for example, or you can request a new profile that won't have the common name in it. I hacked that into cert-manager and it worked. It won't make it in for cert-manager 117 at this point, but at least as a proof of concept, it worked. It just does require us to make changes to our Acme client, which is actually the Go standard Acme client. So it would, I don't know if we would get it merged upstream, but we can always fork and then use upstream later, which is what we've done before. Like for preferred certificate chains, we did that. So that's a little bit more exciting. At least I've proved that it can be done. If I haven't actually raised the actual PR to do it, but I've proved it, someone can do that. So if time allows, we'll get there. That's enough of me talking, though. We've got plenty on the agenda, and a lot of it is to do with Helm. But the first thing is not Helm. So let's start there and not think about Helm for a few minutes. So. Josh, I did read this earlier, and I'm not sure I fully followed it. So could you run us through it, please?
So we are running a Google Kubernetes cluster with cert-manager, and it is running with the standard Ingress Nginx. And there's an IP address that Google has, which is mapped to the cluster to the ingress. And we have services and ingresses which are mapped to that, and cert-manager is mapping certificates for those. We decided to enable the gateway API, and the goal is to move from using the ingress to use this gateway for our HTTP and HTTPS stuff. That means, though, we have to have both of them at least temporarily alive at the same time. So the gateway got a different IP address, and we tried to ask for an ingress to use the gateway to and then to have cert-manager issue it a certificate. And what it did was it spun up a certificate challenge answer thing on the ingress instead of on the gateway. So if it actually tried to ask Let's Encrypt for a certificate, it wouldn't work because the ingress challenge answer is over there and the gateway incoming thing is over here. And so, um, I mean, since it seems like a perfectly reasonable migration strategy, you stand up both, you share the certificates over, and then you move DNS to point from one IP address to the other IP address, and things should just work smoothly. It I don't think we did anything terribly wrong. There didn't seem to be any obvious knobs. So I think it's just a bug, but maybe somebody knows something. Maybe it's easy to fix. I don't know.
It certainly smells like a bug at the first glance, doesn't it? I feel like what I am missing to be able to understand fully is if you're able to share it, the YAML for your ingress. Sorry, not your ingress, your issuer. Where this would be configured. Um, I could believe that there is a bug. So, but in the docs for this, like there's two different keys, right? You have ingress or you have gateway. for requesting this. And like if you said gateway and you got an ingress, definitely a bug, right? Like if like do you know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean the thing is that ah so we actually have to create a different issuer. We can't
Yeah,
use the same we can't use the same issuer.
yeah.
Ah,
So it is baked into the issuer. So
okay.
there's an example from the docs.
Yeah,
You see
okay. So
under
yes.
it.
So our issuer, because I assumed naively that I could use the same issuer for both sides, but no, I can't. I actually have to create a new issuer for the gateway side.
Yeah, so basically you're telling the Acme issuer this is how you should solve the challenge. So it would either be
Okay.
one of the HTTP ones or it would be a DNS one. And in this case, I think probably it's changing the literally changing the word ingress to gateway HTTP route and then maybe a little bit underneath that.
So there are solvers as an array. Could I actually have two HTTP 01 solvers, one which is Ingress and one which is a gateway, and have it just try both, and whichever one succeeds, I don't care that it wasted a little bit of work.
Um, I don't know if you could do them both for the same DNS names. I think that's there so you can scope down so you could have like your company domain done on Google Cloud DNS and then your cluster specific thing on HTTP. I've never tested if that any of
I,
that works, but I would
I mean,
assume
I'll
it.
try it, but if it does, that would be great. And if it doesn't, it would be nice if it did.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there is a way to scope
And
it down.
obviously, we can obviously just create a second issuer and move it over. That's fine. But
Yeah,
it would have been nice if we didn't need to, because like conceptually, my ingress itself is tied to either a gateway or an ish or a ingress, and it would have been nice if I didn't have to say in two places a thing. But
yeah. I've linked to what I think are the helpful docs on this. So there's like a whole selector logic for saying which solver should be used for which type of certificate. I've never personally used that. My usual process is just one DNS solver and everything sorted from that. But this seems this seems like it's the right direction, at least for you to go in.
all right, thank you. That should be more than enough. I bet we can get this working today and have some hints for people doing migrations, maybe even next week.
That'll be awesome. Hopefully that helps. If not, Slack is always there. So I think that one's finished.
Yeah.
It's cool. One thing I didn't do earlier and should have done was to welcome everyone to the meeting. Um, Fernando, Soref, and Yvonne. Uh, I, I think this is your first bi-weekly, is it?
It is. It is. Thank you. Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Welcome. It's great to have you here. Josh, you've come before. I do remember having you here a
Yeah,
while
but
back.
very rarely.
Yeah, your first time in a while, so welcome back. Um, Obviously, Erik and Adam are also maintainers, along with me, Mr. Mysterious. So, um, yeah, if you guys had anything that you wanted to discuss today, that you wanted on the agenda, um, please feel free to add it. Um, or you could mention now, yeah, Fernando.
I'm just the templating guy. So so if we are gonna discuss that topic, I'm here if I can add more context and background, and
I,
that's
s-
it. That's all I
I
wanted to
see.
add.
Well, it's good. It's good to have you here.
Thank you.
Okay, so I suppose that's the next topic then. So the templating stuff is, um, to give a summary of this, we had a pull request which sort of attempted to add something like this in Trust Manager. It's not exactly the same, but it's sort of similar-ish. And we closed that sort of on the grounds that we didn't know that we wanted to support it, and like the idea of adding templating kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies in a way that I can't really define what scared me about it, but it does just seem a bit spooky. Um, and then coincidentally, I think your PR, Fernando, was raised on cert-manager, and there's obvious similarities there. And I've had I've had the tab open with your PR in it the whole week, and I've not got around to responding to it because I've just been tapping the keyboard doing releases. But now we get the chance. So I guess, could you sum up for us, Fernando, what it is that you're doing here? Just so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, let me add you the context of the pain that we suffer sometimes, not specifically with cert-manager though. I know that there's some sentiments around Helm in general and templating over templating, and I get that. I'm totally in with that. Right? So I work at Fastly. We deploy a fleet of Kubernetes clusters around multiple clouds, environmental servers, all that stuff, right? And one of the things we've been trying to solve in my team, which maintains those clusters and all those platform components like cert-manager, is centralizing configuration in one single place, because otherwise you end up with a bunch of metadata scattered around many different places, such as project ID in Google Cloud, AWS account ID, the data center, stuff like that, right? So one of the features that we like leveraging is workload identity and IRSA when we are deploying things that need to talk to cloud APIs, right? So it's keyless authentication, right? Typically, that functionality works with adding an annotation to a service account. Boom, it works, right? So here's the problem that I face sometimes. Problem. If we cannot template the values, then it means that I need to add that metadata to every single file or every single environment, because it's not the same project ID, it's not the same environment key name. So things that don't match on every environment, right? It's not always cert-manager at Google something. It's always a different project ID, different account ID, right? In an attempt to revamp how we do things, what we are doing is centralizing the configuration in one single place and then distribute that through common metadata that we inject when we deploy via Argo CD. So we register clusters in Argo CD, and Argo CD application matches a cluster and it can get the labels from a cluster. So I can just build the service account email or the role ID in AWS and put it into a service account. Without templating in the values, I cannot interpolate that, right? Because what cert-manager exposes is service account annotations dictionary, right? And it's either I modify the cert-manager template itself, which I don't want to, because I don't want to vendor the chart. I want to use the chart that you already provide, which is good enough for me. Or produce many values files where I keep repeating project ID, environment name, cluster name, wherever I need to build the full service account email. So cert-manager chart is not the first Helm chart that I find this issue for ourselves, right? So I did the same thing, external DNS Helm chart, treating the annotation keys and values as a string that you can use a template. This by default doesn't change anything. So the current annotations will work as they are. If there is not a template, it will be a simple key value as usual. And but if it's a value file, it's a value key, then it will render it properly. So that got merged in external DNS. Also, I got asked, I think by Erik in a Slack thread, of other examples of applications allowing the same. HashiCorp Vault, if that helps, does the same. And I've been in talk with colleague of you, which been kind of like helping me promoting this PR a bit. So the scope of this PR is just service account annotations. I understand, like, well, if you're adding this to service account annotations, why not to other kind of annotations and stuff like that. And the other thing is just like it's default to nothing, right? Like the default is gonna keep working the way it is. But I don't know. I just wanted to give you like this context. I also I'm happy to accept the trade-off that we in cert-manager. I know that we recently added a schema validation, which is very nice. And I have to accept the trade-off of avoiding skipping the schema validation. That's something that I think like we are fine to accept. But this is the whole context. This is what I did, and but I understand also your concerns. Thanks.
Thank you. That's super helpful. I guess where I'm ending up with this is that, like, Peter, who you've been talking to on that thread, if he's kind of comfortable with this, like, given his background, I'm comfortable with this in a limited application. Like, my concern, I think, is for us as maintainers that longer term, people will crop up and say, "Oh, I actually want to template this random field," and if we had to support like allowing that on any random Helm value, it would be the chart would be unreadable like pretty much immediately. I don't think that's going to happen. I think we can say like only for this field. It seems like given Peter's championing of this that it's fairly safe. So I'm kind of inclined towards this, I think. The thing that I'm really interested in is Erik's thoughts, because I know Erik has thought about this more than I have thought about this, and he's got his hand up. So let's see what he's got to say.
I am actually more positive to this now after thinking of it for a while. I clearly understand the use case here. It's kind of getting obvious to me. When you have a lot of inventory to manage, it's convenient to have these mechanisms. And I've also looked around the block to see, and I see that a lot of other chart repos allow this construct. So I also listen to what Peter says, and I'm okay with this. More okay than I was before.
This is the power of the bi-weekly meeting.
Yeah.
Consensus is so much easier. Adam, you've got your hand up.
I also lost the window and muted myself. Yeah, my main concern was just the thing fighting the schema validation, but I think that can be avoided if you, instead of using like the metadata field, you use the magic globals ability of Helm, which is unvalidated, I believe. So you could put things pretty much just key value in there and access that using the templating function. If that doesn't work, then I would like to see a way of getting schema validation to play nicely with it. I don't like the idea of having to disable schema validation just to use a feature of the chart. If that's just like carving out a section of the Helm schema and saying anything under this object is unvalidated random key value data, then so be it. But yeah. Also, I was thinking about this problem as well of templating fields that charts don't allow you to template normally. One thing I've seen we done and have done myself is used Argo to deploy Argo applications. So you create a Helm chart which essentially contains all your Argo applications, and then you can template anything you want in there because you're deploying you're templating your Argo applications, and then you essentially have a package which is your add-ons Argo distribution, which is then deployed by Argo into itself. And it's like a whole recursive thing, but is a way of templating whatever you want because you are just templating Helm at that point. That's all I had. Erik, do you want to have thoughts on that?
I agree with you on it's just sad to have to turn off the full schema validation just to use one feature. But that could be considered a future improvement if we can make that work. So I wouldn't consider it a blocker for introducing this. I would also like to know why doesn't Helm support this natively? cross-referencing values. That would be the silver bullet to solve this problem.
So YAML does natively support cross-referencing values, just not interpolation. So YAML, you can reference other fields technically, but it's just like it doesn't support interpolation. And I guess like
but Helm could
there's
just
a lot
template any value so you result to not having a template anymore.
Yeah, at that point, where do you stop? You render each value as a template when you print it, and then if it's still like then you try again. If it doesn't change, you consider it done. But if it changes, then you've you keep on going. Like just keep on rendering it until it doesn't change.
Yeah. Sharp Helm has already so many sharp corners. So and as you know, I'm not a big fan of Helm, but there is not very good alternatives to it. So we just have to use it.
So
Yeah.
a common refrain in our stand-ups and our bi-weekly meetings. What I'm hearing is there's no reason for us not to merge this. I've already written out a comment with an LGTM on it that will merge this now. Unless someone screams in the next 2 seconds, I'm going to press submit review and approve it. No one screamed.
Do
It's
it.
done.
And then maybe if there's a follow-up issue, tracking, adding a carve-out space so the schema validation works.
Okay. I will. Could you add that to the action items on the document for me, just so I don't go silent and add that now? Cool. So I think that is probably the end of that. We've merged it. That one decision is made. All good. So
Thanks, folks.
Muchas
Thanks for
gracias.
coming to this meeting. It usually makes things happen.
It's so much easier, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was very useful, and if I may add something, like I totally understand Erik's point. When we had that thread in Slack, I kind of shared some feelings about also templating, but there's no good alternative, and sometimes
No.
it is what it is.
Yeah.
True.
I suppose also, even though he's not here, shout out to Peter for championing this as well. He's done a lot of work on this, and he's a star. We love Peter. Cool. So that's merged. So, well, it'll merge soon when Brow's caught up to the approval. The next thing was something that Erik had around protocols for our Helm charts more generally. Firstly, I'm just going to check, Yvonne, is there anything that you wanted to get out of this? For context, Yvonne has joined a few of our stand-ups this week and wants to get involved in contributing. Are you just here for social reasons, or did you have anything specific? I do know it's quite late. Maybe not. No worries. If you have anything, just shout out. So Erik, I'll throw it over to you to drop some context on this one.
Yeah, I received a notification from this pull request. If you click on the link, you can see the the contributor added a picture showing his or her feelings, and I think it's justifiable. I mean, he creates a good PR. It appears like a good PR. And I've also seen this happen before in cert-manager and also in other projects I'm involved in, that PRs just lay around, no one commenting on them, nothing happens with them. It's like they're ignored. And in cert-manager org, I think it's typically around Helm PRs, because I think most of the maintainers, we prefer to see new features, bug fixes in the code in general. And many of these PRs are for quite niche features, which add something that the user needs to solve their use case. But there are other ways to solve what they're trying to do. And also, I think we should consider to at least add some protocols to the projects, to the organization, where we kind of have a guideline which can be known to everyone about approximately where we draw the limit. I'm not sure what that should contain and where we should draw the limit, but I feel it's not very kind to our community and your contributors to treat the PRs that we receive the way we are currently. So hoping for some discussions here. That was more my purpose of this point.
So there's kind of two bits there. There's like there's a time to triage things more generally, or to review things more generally, which is definitely an issue that we have. And then there's specifically as well, like how we can help make Helm PRs easier for everyone involved. To the first point, like at the moment, getting time is a real challenge. Like a lot of the maintainers that we have don't have much time to be working on anything. Everyone's busy, and it is tough right now for sure. For maintainer time, and my inclination is that tooling is probably the answer there, like to help us sort of drink from the fire hose and triage things as they come in, at least. Just it's a hard place to be. I could talk for too long and people have their hands up. Josh, yours was up first, so do you want to go ahead?
Yeah, in some ways, I may have made this worse. I added a bunch of tags to a whole bunch of PRs that were kind of in the same state. And now I'm getting the notifications from some of the automation saying, we're killing them again. And as somebody who makes a lot of PRs to a lot of repositories, I understand the different sides, uh, and I understand the emotions. I usually don't mind the tumbleweeds, uh, in that I have probably 500 PRs open, and I don't care if two of them are stuck because there are 498 ones that might not be stuck. And on the other hand, if I need a feature, if I can make the feature, I can use a fork for it while I wait. So that doesn't bother me too much. It is a problem if I need the feature for others. I don't necessarily want to do maintenance releases on things. But if I can't actually do that, then I really shouldn't be asking others to use my thing. So I do have sympathy all around. Uh, I mean, my general advice is to try to have something which picks up a bunch of things and adds it into an agenda, so that on a meeting like this, you have these are the 5 oldest things that we haven't looked at recently. Let's triage them. And so that nothing gets past some age point without at least people looking at it and deciding, oh, no, we definitely don't want this, or we need to have somebody look at it or something, so that ideally you don't have something that goes for 5 or 10 years without a response. Uh, I mean, I could look and see what my oldest PRs are to the world, but it could easily be 5+ years.
Thank you. Yeah. I've put a link in chat to our triage party tooling, which in theory should help with this, but that ultimately there's no regular schedule in which it's done, and there's no one ultimately responsible for seeing it done. So it ends up kind of being an ever-growing list. Adam, you also had your hand up.
Yeah, I was saying, I think a lot of the issue as well is that, like, I don't see the PRs. I don't have notifications of every PR in the repo. Um, I think I'm very noisy when I raise PRs. Like if I raise a PR and I want it done, I'll find the dev Slack channel and go bug them, which works for cert-manage if you've got something champion it. Um, so I think part of the issue is that PRs just get raised and then we don't look at them as regularly as we should, and they just start going stagnant. And then when you do look at them, you see it's like 6 months old, and you're less inclined to follow up on it. Um, and yeah, I also think maybe it is the these PRs don't have a champion, so maybe we can message better. Maybe we could have sort of a comment that automatically applies to all PRs saying we are a limited number of maintainers. We will try and get to your PR, but if you need to champion it, please look at our contributing section for how to contact us with the daily stand-ups and the bi-weekly meetings. Because I will happily sit through you showing your PR in as a agenda item in a bi-weekly meeting.
I think what we've done with Fernando today is probably a good example of that, right? Like if someone turns up and says, "Hey, this is my thing and this is why I need it," it makes it much easier to get it merged. And in a similar vein to that, if we have some sort of automation around that where like Erik was talking about specifically Helm things, like if we have a bot that says, "Oh, you've changed something under deploy," like please check these guidelines to make sure you're not wasting your own time, kind of thing. Like there's something to there, like automation could help us.
I think having some documented standards would be excellent as well. Like, contributing GitHub on our community GitHub repo, where we just say these are our Helm standards and these are our Go standards and these are our testing standards, and like just so we can link off to them. Like maybe even in the issue template, we have a little checkbox saying it conforms to the standards as documented in link to a repo. But that would be a good thing to have in general, I think.
We try to cover as much as possible with our linting, which I think is good. But for Helm chart, it's more complicated. For me, it's a problem about how much complexity should you have in Go templates inside YAML. That's what's bothering me. At some point, it becomes totally unreadable. But it's hard to kind of write down where our limit goes in this area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, we do catch a lot within Go with linting, and that's great. That automation saves us a lot of hassle. There are certain things that we could document, like we'd say breaking changes must be behind feature flags, things like that. Just document broad strokes like that to make sure they're picked up. There's a lot more we could document for Helm because, as you said, it's a nightmare to lint. Like it's very hard to write some linter that says, yeah, we don't want you to add nested templates to absolutely everything, or we don't want you to, I don't know, have something that is the most unreadable function ever. Like it's hard to lint that in Helm, but we could certainly try and write some general guidelines. I don't know if there's any prior art on this. That may be a good place to start. I don't know if there's anyone's written any coding standards for Helm.
I think we could start with your suggestion. I think that will improve a lot. Some automation on the pull request. Whenever a pull request arrives, we post our bot posts a short message. I think that's an excellent idea. I support it fully.
Yeah, I think it can't be that hard to configure that. I assume it will be somewhere in our pro config, the message. I'm not sure where exactly it is, but
it will probably be easier to use GitHub Actions for workflows if we are okay with using it.
The one warning I have for that is make sure that it's limited to your owner repositories, because I don't really like getting those messages when I make a PR into my fork of your repository. It's especially what I generally get is not that message. I get this action failed because it didn't have permissions in my paranoid repository. So yes, a thing that outlines, hi, if you once you're doing this, make sure you've like one of the things is like add the labels that you need with a useful explanation of how to do that, because it's not obvious at all. Having been the person who painted like dozens of these recently, or not so recently, but and and the thing saying follow up this year. But yeah, a GitHub action is totally fine for this.
Yeah, we could definitely scope it just the org. That's totally, and yeah, I would do that. I've definitely forked things that had random complaints of GitHub trying to do things when I raise pull requests. I've definitely had that. Yeah, that prior all GitHub actions, I have no preference as long as something posts a message saying foo bar, please read this if you want to champion it. Our meetings are here, link to the calendar, stuff. just useful information that people would need to champion their pull request. And if we have standards coming later, we could make sure we could also add that to messaging.
What about the last part of my agenda item? I feel that this has also been discussed before. Some of the PRs are for kind of, let's say, missing obvious features in the Helm chart, typically in side projects like cert-manager, no, trust manager, for instance. Like you cannot put annotations on service account. To take an example from the previous agenda point, we are using a lot of the Bitnami charts, and I think they're quite good at providing the same features the same way in all their charts, which I find appealing and nice. It's always a kind of I feel home when I look at, we go from one Bitnami chart to another Bitnami chart. It's kind of obvious how they work.
I would love for our Helm charts to be all standardized and nice. That would make life so much easier.
But centralized, you wouldn't be in favor of.
I like that they're in the repo. I like
Yeah.
that I can, like, inside the repo run Helm template /Floyd /chart name. Like, it just makes it easy. We could.
I was expecting that from you and from the others as well. I'm kind of special there. I consider Helm to be something that you put on top of an application to provision it. But
Yeah, I mean, decoupling it comes with benefits and curses. You still need versioning two things separately, which is a pain. You then have to like manage like dual release pipelines when you cut a new version, which is a pain. Like there are benefits to splitting out, but also a lot of pain points. And if reusing functionality is something we do, there's ways we could do that without putting it in a central repo. Like we do that for Makefile modules. We vendor all that stuff in. Like
that's a good point. We could take Helm helpers modules or something that had some centralized helpers for
yeah,
Helm.
we could certainly centralize helpers and functions and stuff that we use a bunch, because like the only issue there is like the way with, because Helm is a special child, you always prefix your functions with the name of the chart. So every chart has the exact same function with a different name. Like the one that prints out the full name of the chart, for example. It's the same function, it's just a different name every time. And it upsets me.
But there you can put the template values. You could have a value that templates the name of the chart.
Oh, now you're adding features to clone that may break all our Makefile stuff.
Now that we open for templating values, we could just take it all the way.
What we should do is build a Helm add-on which templates Helm helpers, which you can then use to build Helm charts. And we could have templates all the way down.
And no values at all. It's just templates, no data.
No, not allowed to have any meaningful words. Oh,
The only cure for Helm is more Helm. I mean, I had a little moment there. I was like, could we use like clone, the tool we're using for Makefile modules? Could we use that to do some sort of like best of both worlds synchronizing Helm charts thing? I guess the problem we're going to have there is that the changes to the Helm charts aren't necessarily going to be well tested before they're merged back into the main repo. So like vendoring it, like if the chart itself lived outside and then it was vendored back in, the tests would kind of suffer for that, I think. Like which we see with Makefile modules, like the changes to those aren't well tested until they get merged into the first repo, and then you realize they're broken, kind of thing.
I was just about to ask you about where are the tests for Makefile modules?
Yeah, it's a drum I've been banging for a while on that one as well. It doesn't rule it out, but certainly that helper stuff, yeah, I could see how helpers could be done. My main concern with any kind of standardization is going to be that it's it's a lot of work to commit to that I don't think we've got the maintainer time to do. Like most of them are fairly standard-ish outside of cert-manager, which is kind of its own special thing. I like the idea of standardizing it. I don't think we ever actually will.
Not unless we find someone full of energy who wants to come and contribute this.
Full of Helm vigor. I'm not sure anyone matching that description exists, but
I don't know, maybe someone talented but also drunk.
yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for discussing this. I think we're fairly done. So
yeah, I feel like maybe looking at automation around like the championing stuff like that might help people feel a bit less detached from the process when they just raise a PR to silence. That does make sense to me. I put a link in chat to where Prow does the updates on this, and maybe GitHub Actions might be simpler, but it's definitely something to think about. I could see why we would do something like that. Josh, I think your hand up was up first.
I added another item to the agenda, so
I saw it. That's another one of those that I meant to. I've been meaning to LGTM for a while. I think. I think it's pretty uncontroversial, that one. So other maintainers, please feel free to take a look. But I'm happy to simplify that output. It's a fairly small one. Unless there was something you wanted to add to that now, Josh, but I think
no, I just realized that we were talking about how do people push things along? I'm like,
yeah,
oh, I actually have one that should be pushing along. I'm in the meeting where I can do this.
championing in action. Yeah, I'll take a look at that before I finalize the beta for 1.17 for sure. I'll add it to the milestone if it's not already added. It is not, so I will add it. Fernando?
I just wanted to add on top of what you already said about adding automation. Like my perceptional feeling is that it, sorry about that. It helped a lot reaching out in Slack, in the Kubernetes Slack. I think it changed the perception of the PR, and we started having conversations, and Peter looked at it. So perhaps something that we could add in that bot comment, like to reach out to Slack if you want to get attention into this PR. Not sure if sorry if you already mentioned that.
It's good to call it out. Thank you.
yeah.
I'm conscious we're coming into our final 10 minutes of the meeting. Erik, I've just spotted a comment you've posted.
Yeah, I just it should be a short thing. This is a PR that I've been following for a while about being able to literally put the key store password into the certificate resource.
Yep.
I think this contributor needs some help. So as you all know, of the cert-manager project, cert-manager itself is the one I'm less familiar with. So I wonder if we had anyone who could volunteer to take a look at this. I think it's a feature that a lot of people will love to have, because then you don't need to mess with the secrets and stuff. But we're also talking about adding a default there, which could be sometime in the future. But let's start with an opt-in to set the password inside the spec. That would be super cool.
Yeah,
Where I work, we could use it a lot. Could reduce our airbag and everything.
This is one that's been sort of, it's gone about a few times, hasn't it? It's I think given the time constraints I know that I have, what I'm willing to do is put this in the milestone for 117, which means I will at least look at it in the next week and see if I can quickly hack it so that it's mergeable for 117, because it should be simple to add this. And I should practice what I preach, because this is what I would tell everyone to use this and not bother with a secure password. So yeah, I'll
Would
try.
be lovely. Thanks, Ashley.
I'll try and
Thanks.
take a look.
Yeah.
Cool. I think we've exhausted all the things on the agenda. We've done all the announcements. We've done some bonus discussions, and I think we're pretty much done for the day, unless anyone else has anything else they want to bring up. Anything from anyone? Then all I need to do is say thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to stop the recording. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe, of course. We're going to take over the world with the cert-manager YouTube channel. Thanks very much. See you all soon.